Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, August 12th, 2019. This is the Wilmette Park District Regular Meeting Board of Park Commissioners. First on our agenda this evening is the roll call.
Commissioner Abbott.
Here.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Here.
Commissioner Schisler is absent. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Goebel.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Wolf.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 8th, 2019 regular meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes from the July 2019 regular meeting.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes?
I had a couple minor ones I think Steve's already got.
Yeah, they were just cleanup of typos.
Okay. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch.
Yes.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is communications and correspondence. In the packet, there were many emails regarding the stormwater issue. I don't believe there was any other correspondence in there on any other topics. Just basically for removing trees, for not removing trees, for different things that children would like to see. So lots of emails. Were there any other communications that any other board members would like to mention?
There was some today that was forwarded. I don't know if that's going to catch the next packet.
I think
It'll
it'll
be
catch
in
the
the
next
next
meeting for next Monday.
Yep.
I received some communication about an activity going on at one of the parks, and the staff followed up
Okay,
about
great.
it. Yeah.
And any communication I received, I forwarded for inclusion.
Thank you. All right. Next up will be recognition of visitors. We thank you all for coming. We have a lot of people here tonight. I would like to remind everybody about our public comment policy. Please raise your hand and I will call on you and I'll try to get to everyone in a timely manner. And then if you could come to the podium, state your name and your address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We're going to have a timer next to me who will let you know when you have a minute left. He'll raise his hand and you guys can hopefully, wrap it up. And please avoid any inflammatory remarks and please address the entire board, not any one specifically. This won't be a back and forth dialogue. It'll be you all giving input to us. And we won't be discussing this issue on stormwater tonight because we have a special meeting next Monday night where we will take the entire meeting to debate and discuss and take any more input from residents. So there won't be a discussion tonight. That being said, who would like to speak to us? I'm going to start right here in the blue.
Hi, I'm Sophie Candido, 1221 Colgate Street.
I'm Kathleen Sullivan, 1225 Colgate Street.
So Park District Board, we represent the Colgate Street Neighborhood Association. We thank you so much for your prompt and thorough replies to our email requests in the past month. We've shared them with our email distribution list to educate our neighbors and to collect feedback in order to present to you a collective voice about Thornwood Park. We've advocated for 6 main points and we've received support for all of them. The first 3 are from our petition, which was presented last month and which now has 121 signatures. The remaining 3 are from email exchanges that we've had with our distribution lists in response to your replies. So just to summarize, our top priorities for Thornwood Park are, number 1, we want to save the trees. We want alternative configuration number 2. Number 2, we want to return the park to its original function, no new amenities, no public restroom, no sledding hill. We just attended the Parks and Recreation Committee tonight, and we expressed our many reasons why we oppose any decision to replace the seasonal portable toilets in Thornwood Park with permanent restrooms. Number 3, we want park function to return as soon as possible. Replace the grass with sod, not seed.
Number 4, we would like a portable generator to be used instead of a permanent generator. Our goal is to keep Thornwood Park as is, which means we do not want any extra permanent structures above ground, especially ones that might require frequent, loud, and odorous maintenance and testing. Also, if a permanent generator will not be used, then we assume we don't need to entertain suggestions about a permanent restroom, since the 2 discussions will no longer be related. Number 5, we would like the location of the pumping station to be as close to a street as possible in order to eliminate or minimize any paved road that would need to be placed through the park. Preferably, the pumping station would be a reasonable distance away from the backyards of the neighbors whose property borders the park to the east. Our understanding is that the pumping station can be completely underground. Number 6, We would like language to be put into the memorandum of understanding, which would allow for small modifications to be made to the exact location and shape of the underground vault of alternative configuration 2, even after the MOU is signed. These modifications would not increase cost or construction complexity. We'd like to see drawings of a possible vault configuration that would shift parts of alternative configuration 2 slightly west and south. The goal would be to keep the vault as far away from the trees and the roots along the east side of the vault and along the northeast corner of the vault where the climbing trees are. We want to see how the left outfield of both baseball diamonds could be utilized in the vault configuration without sacrificing trees or impacting the baseball fences. Shifting the vault slightly west could also increase the distance between the excavation site and the property line of 2336 Thornwood Avenue. Given this construction project would not begin for 2 years, and then we don't have decisions yet about a generator, the pumping station location, or the possibility of restrooms, we would like to include language that will give the public more time to give input. So those are our 6 requests. Again, thank you so much to the village engineers, contracted engineers, and Park District Board and staff for your help as we all gather information. Sincerely, the Colgate Street Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. Yes, sir, over there.
My name is Tasha Rosenthal, and I live at 430 Beverly Drive. A week ago, Sunday, I was with my daughter at the pool.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
A week ago, Sunday, I was with my daughter at the pool, and she told me about the Dayton incident, which I didn't know about. And then I started to look around the pool and think about pool safety. These are my observations and some thoughts. Aside from the main entrance to the pool, there were 3 gates, all facing the parking lot. 2 gates have push bars which open from the inside. The 3rd gate is deadbolted, and there's no exit possible. The remainder of the perimeter enclosing the pool area is fenced off with a chain link fence and no gates or access out of the pool area. The south part is bordered by the Centennial buildings, and the north part, which is quite elevated, there's a drop about maybe 15 feet to, and this is where the garden is that people rent. So there are, should there be an intruder who comes in, there is absolutely no way for people to escape except through the front. So I'm suggesting that maybe exit gates be installed on the, the east side and the north sides of the pool. The other thing that I observed, there were no cameras that I could see monitoring the parking lot. And there were no cameras also for the, where the ice rink is. There were inside cameras. The other thing is I contacted the police department. I went there to ask about, how they're notified in case of an emergency. Everything is 911. And I thought of maybe a possibility of like a panic button in the...
1 minute remaining.
Okay, a panic button in the, the pool, which would instantly notify our police department and surrounding police departments, and therefore shorten the time response period. Mm-hmm. The other thing is we all have the siren that goes off once a week, and that's for weather-related incidents. In today's technology, maybe that siren can be reprogrammed so that if there is an event, it could have a different kind of a call to go out through the village and the neighboring areas. Unfortunately, we have to think about these things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jan Barcia. I live at 1500 Sheridan Road. Been a resident of Wilmette for 40 years, 25 of which were spent on Pomona Lane around the corner from the High Crest Cottonwood Grove. I'm also a trustee on the board of the Wilmette Public Library. I come tonight to strongly encourage the Park Board to reconsider your recent decision to institute the more costly stormwater plan in spite of the overwhelming support of the neighbors and friends of the Highcrest Grove for the most reasonable, less costly plan, all for the sake of a couple soccer fields. The approved plan is much too expensive when there is a more reasonable alternative that can be agreed upon. Isn't saving money important when residents will be facing costly stormwater fees in the very near future? The more expensive plan would entail cutting down the 31 cottonwood trees in the park and replacing them probably with immature saplings. The cottonwoods are already natural stormwater tanks that for years have been sequestering over 6,200 gallons of water every spring. Now, 6,200 gallons may not seem much when you consider the tanks, but when you consider that these trees have been doing it for 10, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know. That's a lot of stormwater. And they're free of charge. They don't charge a stormwater fee. They do it for us or for themselves. They're a natural living flood insurance policy, so please keep that. And your plan uses the same size storage tank as in the original plan. So you're actually reducing, if you take those trees down, the overall amount of stormwater that can be sequestered. Are you willing to deal with the anger of neighbors and friends who had agreed on a more affordable plan, reasonable? Are soccer players more important than the people who live in the neighborhood and pay taxes to support the district? Please tell us how we should explain to our children and our grandchildren that the plan that the Park District has made means cutting down valuable trees when they are learning in school about the role that trees play in helping slow climate change in Wilmette. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Jeff Sachs. I'm at 2412 Meadow Drive North.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I had prepared remarks, and then when I was reading through the minutes from last month, I just was astounded at some of the things that were noted. Living on the park and having a clear view of everything that goes on in the park, there are comments that I just don't see, and I've been there over 25 years. I've never seen the park fully utilized, ever. I've never seen the kids from Highcrest needing more space, ever. They have their run around the trees, they have their soccer games, they have their touch football or flag football. Where do these comments from informal conversations with school where they would like to have the opportunity for more usage? What is it that they're going to do with more space that doesn't already exist? Comments about saplings being the equivalent of fully mature trees. That just boggles my mind. Look at our logo. Should that tree be horizontal? Where is the demand? What is the demand for more field space? I've never seen anything in the Wilmette Life or in the Beacon that describes where this demand is coming from. So again, I see these comments that are trying to justify an action, and I just don't see any facts that support it. The other is a comment about the trees, that cottonwoods are only good for 40 to 50 years. I don't know how old those trees are. I look straight into them every single morning, afternoon, and evening. Are there dead limbs? Sure, just like on every tree. Are those trees healthy? They look really healthy to me, and I think if anyone takes a walk around that grove, they would come to the same conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for hearing our comments on the matter of the Cottonwood Grove at Highcrest.
Sorry, could you just state your name and address, please?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Karen Bowen, and I live at 2508 Thornwood, and I am joined by
Tessa Bowen, Melanie Bowen, and Grace Bowen.
Okay. Thank you for hearing our comments on the matter of the Cottonwood Grove at High Crest this evening. My name is Karen Bowen, and my family, including my 3 daughters and my husband, who is scheduled to play tennis at Thornwood Park as we speak, have lived in Wilmette for 12 years now. We moved to Wilmette when we were expecting our first daughter for the reasons that many of you probably moved here as well. The good schools, safe environment, and family-focused community. Over the years, my daughters have taken so many of the classes offered by the Park District, from baby music classes to dance and gymnastics, ice skating and art classes, and we have had so many birthday parties at the gymnastics facility. The Park District has been a huge blessing in our lives as a family, but I'm here because I believe that the responsibility of the Park District goes beyond the programmatic offerings that we have enjoyed. The responsibility of the Park District is also to serve the community of Wilmette by protecting and caring for the parks that we all enjoy. To me, a large part of this is preserving the natural elements of the parks we enjoy. An aunt came to visit for the first time this summer and commented that we live in such a beautiful place because of the trees. When people are looking to buy a home, they don't look for a bare spot with a few spindly new plantings. At the top of people's list is frequently mature vegetation because it is so much more attractive. I and my family have benefited from the areas between High Crest and the junior high designated for sports and recreation, but this area will be so much less than without the huge trees that are there. We have watched band and chorus concerts beneath those trees. My kids had played hide and seek among them when they decided they were not interested in watching their sister's soccer game. And I have walked under them when visiting a friend who lives behind the fields. The size and the age of these trees makes them irreplaceable. No landscape plan will be able to match the magnificence of them within our lifetime. When I walk among them, I feel small. My perspective changes for a moment, and I feel as if I'm visiting something that has been going on for a long time before me, and that will continue a long time after I'm gone. And I think that this is a good thing. Places like this grove allow us to slow down from our frantic lives for a moment and consider the world beyond our immediate worries, and having places like that make our community better. I realize that these things cannot be measured or monetized through rentals or whatever else, but I think they are a big reason why the quality of life is so good in Wilmette. As someone who uses the Park District, the park facilities regularly, I think you're doing a great job. I'm very happy with the parks I frequent and the programs we take part in. I'm sure that as a board members, there's always pressure to do more, build better, bigger, expand and increase. But the price of losing this huge old grove of trees is too high. For this reason, I would prefer a plan that did not include the destroying of the cottonwood trees at the community playfields between High Crest and the junior high. And I would ask you to please think very carefully when you are making your decision.
Thank you.
My daughters would like to also make a statement.
Sure.
But they are shy, so I have a very short video that they have made. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, hold this.
Hello, my name is Grace. I am 8 years old, and I'm going into 3rd grade at Hollander Elementary School. I have played 3 years of soccer, and almost every time before and after the soccer practice, I have noticed that kids have been playing hide and seek underneath the shade of the tree because it is such a good hiding spot. I'm Tessa. I'm 10, and this year I'm going into 5th grade at High Crest Middle School. I have played under the trees because my friend's house is close to High Crest. So we go to play but under the trees. But if they dig up the trees and replace it with little trees and AstroTurf, I don't think we'll want to play there because AstroTurf is really hot. Hello, my name is Melanie. I am 12 and I'm going into 7th grade. When I was in 5th and 6th grade, every Monday we would have to run, and
Thank you.
Thank you, girls. Great video. All right. Who's next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Derek Castile. I live with my family at 2447 Pomona Lane. I guess I wanted to kick things off with an anecdote about what brought us to our home. My wife and I lived in the city together off and on for over 10 years, and when we found out that she was pregnant, we looked around at houses in Evanston and Wilmette, and we looked at a lot of different places and didn't really get excited about any of them. And then the place that we ended up buying on Pomona Lane came on the market, and I had to take a business trip that day. So I went over to the house first thing in the morning and walked around the house. It was empty at the time, and I didn't have time to get a realtor to show it to me. And I called my wife and said, you know, I got to catch this flight, but can you go over there and get our realtor to take you through it? And she went through it, and she said, I like it, but you're really going to love it. And I was already really sold because I'd looked out the backyard, and it overlooks what's known as the community playfields. And so what ended up happening is that we didn't really drive a very tough bargain with the owners. And I later learned from one of my neighbors that he thought we probably paid about $50,000 over what it was worth. And then shortly after we moved in, another neighbor who's since moved away came by and said, so you guys plan on living here? And I just assumed it was a teardown. So at any rate, we loved the house so much that we were willing to pay what was really everything that we had to be able to move into it and live in a very old house that's got a lot of issues because it sits on that park. Over the last few weeks, I've learned through my neighbors that there's been talk of a number of things, of cutting down these trees, of potentially putting artificial turf on the park and building a big pumping station. I guess I just wanted to say that my family and I would be really opposed to those things. We greatly appreciate a number of things about the park. My daughter's played in soccer leagues in the park, but I think probably most selfishly for me is that I really get a lot out of just going out there early in the morning or late at night and walking around and enjoying nature, hearing the birds singing, and being surrounded by the trees. I think there's something to be said for that, and there's a lot of research out there that would suggest that that's actually good for people's mental health and that it drives down anxiety, just simply spending time in nature. And so I'm hoping that we can find a way to preserve nature and not cut down the trees and do some of these other things. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Evangelist Economo. I live at 601 Hunter Road. Lived there for about 25, 28 years. In fact, Mr. Murdoch and I were pals forever because of the Indian guides.
Absolutely.
I rise in defense of the trees at the risk of repeating everybody else. There's three issues that I think are practically important. Number one is the carbon sequestration issue. I think the trees remove carbon from the air, and also by cutting them down, you would lose all of that carbon that's already in the trees themselves, because they would eventually deteriorate and become carbon dioxide again, adding to the climate warming problems that we have. Second issue is, why would we want to use a plan that has, as one of the features, cutting down the trees, when there's an alternative plan that's even less expensive and would not have as much resistance from the community at large. And the third issue that I would like to raise is whether or not the space is needed for additional fields for soccer. I've been there. Our house doesn't border on the field, but it's close by. And I've been there on Saturday mornings, and I've never seen all of the fields being used at once at any one time. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Would anyone, yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry. No. Sorry.
Hi there. My name is Edie Rowe. I live at 2710 Hawthorne Lane, and I enjoy very long walks over at the community playfield. Consider it my alternate backyard. And I also am here representing the Little Garden Club of Wilmette. That is, I think we've spoken before, and we are very supportive of the Park District in terms of the change that you were willing to make to save the Centennial Prairie. We really appreciate that. And so we're here today to speak on behalf of the trees, along with the Lorax. But I'd like to thank you, the commissioners, for your willingness to entertain a variety of choices in terms of how to deal with the very sticky issue of stormwater management, because I am personally affected by flooding and things of that nature. I have Lake Edie every time it rains in my backyard. And I've been planting native trees with their very long roots to be able to absorb that water, take that water and put it deep into the water table where it belongs. And so we'd like to see and have an opportunity to preserve what is a natural way of stormwater management continuing to perform its function the way that wonderful grove is doing right now in the community playfield. I do have a question for you commissioners. When I read the minutes of the meetings from July, because there seemed to be a differentiation between what is a neighborhood park and what is a village park. And I'm not sure if I understand, or if many of the other members who are here today of our community understand why that seems to be, what the difference is and why it seems to influence the decision that was made at the last meeting to go and depart from the position that appeared the commissioners were taking on the other two parks, Thornwood and Hibbard, to basically save money and trees. But when it came to the Centennial, to the community playfield, to not take that same position, because I think with option, the alternate 2, which is the L-shaped option, you have the ability to save village residents money, which is important, as well as save those trees that, as other people have raised here, are pretty irreplaceable. They've been here a long time, and they're doing a wonderful job in terms of helping the village manage the stormwater. So I'd like to just suggest that you really strongly look at that alternative, because you get the best of both worlds. You're saving money, you're saving trees, and you're also saving the option for the future, for future commissioners, to be able to make a decision about what would happen when there becomes a more clear and pressing need for programming. Because in the village minutes, or I should say the meeting minutes from July, there seemed to be no clear pressing need for programming now. Steve, I see you're kind of...
3 minutes. You're at
3 minutes.
You're at
I'm
your 3
done?
minutes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate the work you're doing and your willingness to listen to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to the other lady who was coming up before.
Hello, I'm Carol Moskandreas. I live at 1616 Sheridan Road. I'm a retired attorney. My reason for coming today is that, okay, let's see.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that I think you are about to make a error, a mistake in terms of getting rid of 100-year-old trees. They are irreplaceable. And I think in terms of, I think there's something greatly ironic about the fact that the village and the Park District have trees as their motto, because in fact, trees are wonderful. One of the very first things the history of the Park District says it did was to start water management and planting trees. Trees are at the heart of the Wilmette
beautification in the Park District. If you read through the history, you did a lot of tree planting. Here, nature has done the tree planting for you. I would point out that your mission statement says that you are to enrich the quality of community life and promote activities through creative programming for people of all ages and abilities, while protecting open space and natural resources for future generations. If you tear down, those trees are a treasure. They are a treasure. They are a natural resource. What they're doing for you right now is they're providing a place for birds of prey to get nice high nests so that they can take care of the rodent population. They provide buds that honeybees love, so that this is a really big honeybees problems. This is a really contribution to giving them something yummy to eat. And then there's the issue of the sequestration of water. I would submit to you that cutting down the trees would be some ways analogous to cutting off your nose if you have a sinus drainage problem. It would indeed increase the flow of the sinuses, but you would have actually a much less lovely place. And furthermore, you have a situation where the trees are in fact holding so much water. You are actually, by cutting them down, increasing the problems of water management there. So I would suggest that you also, I don't know how many of you have actually walked in that grove. I think you might want to try it if you haven't, because it is so beautiful. It's just you come out to this open field, and there they are, these monarch trees standing there, giving us beauty, which I think must be something that is part of your mission too, to preserve our natural beauty. And those trees are amazing.
Thank you. There was another woman over in the light blue. Sorry, I'll come back to you all. Sorry.
Hello, my name's Linda Tremmel. I live at 57 Crescent Place, and I've been in Wilmette since before the turn of the millennium, so I don't have to do math for you guys. There were several trees in and around my property that had to be cut down over a period of time because of disease, et cetera, and sadly, devastatingly, we cut them down. We had to do that for our safety and the well-being of our home and our neighbors. And I spent money to join with the village to replace a tree in front of my home. So under the circumstances where there are companies and businesses around the world who are trying to plant trees as fast as they can, it doesn't make any sense to me at all that we would be tearing down healthy, living trees. I know that there are pluses and minuses, but it just doesn't seem, in the big scheme of things, that that's the best approach. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to this gentleman here.
Hi, my name is Edie Shah. I live on 2427 Pomona Lane, and I will be going into 6th grade at Highcrest. Me and my family just recently moved to Wilmette in January, and ever since I moved in, my favorite part about the house was the trees in my backyard. I could never imagine what the playfield would be without the trees, and when I heard they were getting cut down, I was shocked. I also heard that when the trees will be cut down, the grass might be replaced by AstroTurf. I love sports, but can you imagine what type of air soccer players will be breathing, especially when it is a hot day? I am also aware that there are other plans which are cheaper and can save the trees. All of you really need to understand that the trees are the solution, not the other way around. The trees absorb so much water that there is no need for a reservoir. The trees are a reservoir itself. Please do not cut down the trees. And let's be honest, I know none of you want to cut down the trees, so don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Sorrel. I've been a Wilmette resident for over 30 years. I live at 2100 Birchwood. And I'll tell you up front, I didn't plan to be here. I've heard about the issue and I care about it deeply, but I have not been involved and I'm not prepared for this. What I will tell you is a couple of anecdotes. My grandparents had a farm. My grandfather had a woods. And I spent a lot of time in that forest with woods. My grandfather showing me what the U of I professor had said was in that woods, a Kentucky coffee nut tree, a big, beautiful walnut that now go for $30,000 a piece. That meant a lot to me, and it led me to write the first poem I've ever written. I've written many poems since, and I think trees and poetry go together. I don't think I have to invoke Joyce Kilmer here, except maybe the final couplet which says, poems are made by fools like me. I am unprepared, but only God can make a tree. I was going to comment about your symbol up there. I didn't have the cleverness to say it should lie sideways, but you're founded in 1908. Trees take a long time to grow, and I'm really here as an older person to speak about all these young kids that had joy like I did down on the farm with my grandparents in nature preserves around here. I can't see how you can take those away. I've been here over 30 years. I've coached more seasons of sports in this town than I've lived here, and two of them were soccer seasons right to the west of those trees. They were a wonderful gauntlet for me to have the kids dribble the balls through and plan on their footwork, and I know the kids loved it. What else do I want to tell you? I had a giant cottonwood on my property. 2008 storm damage took it down, or caused it to be brought down. My son, away at college then, told me that we would probably have to move because it was like losing a member of the family. We've had 20-some years ago on the front page of the Wilmette Life, there was a picture of a tree. We were told it was the largest tree, or the oldest tree rather, in town. It's, I believe, on 19th Street, just south of Birchwood, and that was the oldest tree. Somehow, 5 or 6 years ago, we lost a tree over in Gilson Park. We were told that was the oldest tree in the village. So I don't know who was right, but it kind of doesn't matter. These things last for a long time. You can't replace them, and we ought to leave them for the generations to come.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Oops, maybe this one works. Yeah. Hello, good evening. Thank you for being here and listening to all of us. I am here, my name's Elise Morrons. I live at 333 Hager Lane. I'm here to be a voice for the voiceless, for the 32 or so trees and the wildlife and creatures who depend on their survival. These 32 or so aged trees have most likely experienced more collective life than everyone combined in this room. Something to think about. Nothing can or will replace their presence. Once they are gone, planting new trees, no matter how many, as a replacement to 100-year-old trees will not replace that loss. Make no mistake, that loss will be a permanent one. Let's come together as people all connected to the earth to do the right thing and save these trees, these ancient trees, for all of our future generations. There are other options, better options. Don't make the irreversible mistake that we will all be sorry about in the future. I shouldn't have to remind you that once cut down, gone, and destroyed, there is no going back, and there will only be lamenting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heath. I live on Hager Lane, 333. I'm going into 5th grade at Highcrest, and I know all my friends are really nervous to go to a brand new school. But I think that trees are comforting and refreshing, and they provide oxygen, shade, and they're pretty, and animals live in trees, like squirrels and birds. Plus, trees can be older than you, so respect elders. You should treat these trees with the same respect that you would treat an elder. Finally, My friends and I would really like the comfort and shade of trees, making a brand new school more nature-like and a place kids can go for fun. The trees will make all the fifth graders less nervous. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Adelman. I live at 232 Lawndale in Wilmette. I've lived there with my husband for 46 years, and we have a gigantic cottonwood tree in our backyard, which was as gigantic as it is today when we moved in 46 years ago. There's also a similar tree in our neighbor's yard, and our neighbor just had her cottonwood pruned in the latest fashion. She's very proud of it. There's apparently a new way of pruning trees to make them even more beautiful. But as far as these trees being weak and decrepit and so forth, I would strongly disagree. I must say that I feel as if I'm witnessing a contemporary example of fiddling while Rome burns. And what does that phrase mean? It means to occupy oneself with unimportant matters and neglect priorities during a crisis. And what is the crisis that we are facing? Humanity is facing a crisis of global warming. As a New York Times columnist wrote today, many farmers probably haven't read the new report from the United Nations warning of threats to the global food supply from climate change and land misuse. But we don't need to read the science, we're living it. In fact, the United Nations in May 2019 and a more recent report in Science magazine literally begged the world to take practical action to mitigate global climate change internationally and locally. And locally means Wilmette. What is the practical action that the United Nations and the entire scientific world insists is necessary to divert total disaster? It includes restoring ecosystems and planting millions of trees. Why plant trees? Because trees absorb and sequester CO2, which helps offset global climate change. And the other side of the coin is when we chop a tree down, it releases years of CO2 into the atmosphere, which exacerbates global climate change. So what does an enlightened park district do? It plants trees. I guess my time is up, but
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay, great. Thank you. As I was saying about an enlightened park district, it does not cut trees down, even for significant things like installing a stormwater system or increasing the size of playing fields, which I so far have heard nobody speaking in favor of. Even though there was no such instrument as a violin in the first century when Nero was playing it, the fact is today the same principle exists right here in Wilmette. And Wilmette is not exempt from the ravages of climate change. So I would urge the Wilmette Park District to adopt a modified Z plan, which is gravity-fed and has no pumps, and spares all of the community playfields, cottonwoods, and other trees, and their root systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. That was my son. We didn't exchange any notes.
You did a great job.
From him.
Great job.
As you said, we are new to Wilmette. I grew up in Skokie, just like Mr.
State your name, please?
Oh, my name is Britt Shaw. See, I'm nervous. This is my first time in front of a village park board.
That's okay.
So my name is Britt Shaw, and I am the resident of Wilmette. I live on 2427 Pomona Lane. I grew up in Skokie for 30-plus years, and I came here just to give my hard time to my friends who went to New Trier. Here I am in the backyard now. All of us appreciate your time researching this matter, which is, I think, very near and dear to all the residents, neighborhood, and especially the kids who enjoy these trees immensely. And I am witness to that every single day. When schools are out, I see schools are in PE classes and whatever. I see them all the time, just playing around. They find games around trees all the time. So it's hard to imagine not having those trees. So the decision you take will have a massive impact on the residents, neighborhood kids, ecosystem, and the school kids, and the environment. And I think the progressive and dire impacts of climate change matters to all of us, locally and nationally. Why would anyone think of cutting down a native, close to 100-year-old cotton grove trees, very healthy trees, and that are also located in one corner of a 39-acre playfield? One of the study that I learned recently is that if we remove all the worms and insects from the earth, we humans will die in less than 3.5 years. But if we somehow remove all the humans, I think the planet will flourish. Right? That's something I learned. I think we should something also take note of that. I think we're electing to disturb the ecosystem in all the parks by digging deep into the ground to install the concrete water reservoir. And at this stage, I think we all support it to help those who are affected. I think we should be an example. Wilmette Park District should be an example to others to lead responsibly, and perhaps Wilmette can become an example for the rest of the neighboring cities and villages. I think from our understanding, there is no demand also for an additional soccer field. Catering for the possible future needs of soccer fields, disturbing the current ecosystem by removing the trees will be a tragic loss for the neighborhood, the kids who go to Highcrest and Wilmette Junior High, and will probably set a wrong example, not probably, it will set a wrong example for generations to come. Don't destroy the beautiful community playfield. Don't bring destruction to the ecosystem and the environment. I think if you can hire an intern or data analyst, they can help you probably optimize better use of the park for soccer, baseball, or any other needs you have across Wilmette. Think about this. We all want our children to recycle. We all want children to be careful about the environment. We all want our children to learn and save the planet. But we adults, we turn around and destroy these majestic trees just like that. How do you explain that, the decision that you're going to vote on? I know you will do the right thing. I know you will make sure that there is no harm to the residents, the neighborhood, the community, and hundreds of kids who enjoy this special place. Let's save the trees. Let them leave. Let's plant more trees to compensate for water reservoir. Appreciate your time in listening to my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Faye Jacobs. I live on 2407 Pomona Lane. I thank you very much for considering an alternate plan for the necessary stormwater project here in our beloved community playfield in wonderful Wilmette. I lived on the perimeter of the community playfield for 30 years and have seen countless people of all ages, athletic teams, students, as well as pets, enjoy the beauty of the field and feel that one of the highlights of the park is witnessing the irreplaceable grove of our native trees. 25 years ago, I planted at a shared expense with the Park District, I worked with Kerry at the time, great guy, several trees and a bench at the northeast side of the park in memory of a child of mine who died at an early age. My goal for this bench was to invite people of all ages to sit, rest, heal, contemplate, and even kiss. This bench was specifically planted at a very certain angle to offer the best view of these majestic cottonwood trees to assure there'd be a place for all of our community, not just those that live in the block, to rest and heal if need be and experience free beauty all year long, including the soccer season. I invite all of you to come and sit on this bench and witness the playfield's beauty, that these trees, and have these trees in your view, and close your eyes and imagine these trees gone. The nesting site for the Baltimore Orioles, gone. Red-tailed hawks that nest and perch in the trees, gone. The many species of butterflies, gone. The vibrant color in the springtime, gone. The sun glistening on icicles formed on the trees after a snowstorm, while cross-country skiing through the trees, and yes, I see cross-country skiers, myself included, gone. Enormous shade offered to the school children and soccer teams, gone. I've done this experiment, and for me there's a feeling of loss, and the same goes for others who I've chatted with as they stroll through the park on these hot summer nights.
"Oh no," is the most common response when told that this grove of trees, yes, the tall ones, the ones that can never be replaced in our lifetime, could be chopped down. For all of these years, I've witnessed students from Highcrest Middle School have color war games and other outdoor activities and use the grove for necessary shade on a hot day. It's true that the community playfield is just that, a playfield for all of the community. And with that said, I understand that the stormwater project is most likely going forward and the community playfield would be under renovation. But please, I ask you ever so kindly to put the playfield back just like it is today without the cutting down of these majestic trees. A few months ago, at the urging of those opposed to the chopping down of the trees, an approval was set forth by the village board to investigate other configurations for digging beneath the playfield, and to our joy, 2 plans were set forth which not only cost less money by almost $1 million, but saved a majority of the trees. You know about the petition. I saw your meeting last month, and there were many questions raised, not having to do with the stormwater project, but an extra soccer field or 2. I was surprised to hear why a grove of trees would be sacrificed to add an extra area for a soccer game, primarily in the spring and fall when there's so much beautiful open space which already exists. The Arbor Day Foundation describes the cottonwood tree as an age-old friend to the American people. I describe the Highcrest Cottonwood Grove as an age-old friend to our community and urge you, before you vote, to come and sit on my bench, look out and see and feel the necessity of these trees, and vote to save the Highcrest trees and choose the less expensive plan for the sake of all the taxpayers in Wilmette. And please allow the Cottonwoods to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address us? Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Let's see, I have to go up.
The left one seems to work best.
Which one? The left one.
one,
Okay, great. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Martha Hollander. My husband and I have lived in the Harper neighborhood for 27 years and raised 2 children here. And we were concerned about the Thornwood Park situation, and thank you for listening to our concerns over there about the Oak Grove. So we thought the question about groves of trees was over, but then 3 weeks ago we found that the Cottonwood Grove is in question. What I want to say is that there are a lot of misconceptions tossed around about cottonwood trees, and I'd just like to take a moment to speak about that. I've heard urban foresters and actually a neighbor or 2 of mine express disgust, anger, revulsion about cottonwood trees. I've heard them slandered and described as junk trees or called messy, weak, and dangerous. But other people, myself included, regard them as majestic, beautiful trees, and they're living beings that have a magnetic pull on a lot of us. And here we have them in Wilmette, and I find them to be a rare and unique asset and on public land held in trust for the benefit of our residents. They're a link to the pre-settlement history of this land. They were probably naturally emerged there alongside a stream, which is how cottonwoods take root. They were sacred to the Native Americans, and they were bountiful providers. They were mother trees, soft, fluffy, beautiful, wise. They smelled divine in the spring, and they showed you where to find water. And if you break open a twig, there's a star in the middle. These are some of the things I've been learning while researching these. Just tonight I learned that these trees could be genetically colonies of clones, hundreds or even thousands of years old, because they're related to aspens. And we've all read the news about the aspens out in Colorado. Well, cottonwoods are similar. It's just beginning to be learned. They do shed branches, but they live on as wounded warriors and survivors. I do invite you to visit the grove. It's lovely. Listen to the rustling of the leaves. The Native people regarded that as prayers to the divine creator, or of wisdom being passed down to those who sat beneath their sheltering branches and just listened. I have a vision of a better scenario, one in which I think we can all embrace, in which the Grove is recognized and honored by this park board and welcomed into our park system as the irreplaceable treasure it is, and valued and protected by your leadership, and incorporated into the growing list of nature preserves, all somewhat different, including the Prairie Garden at Centennial, the lovely swale at Elmwood Dunes, the native gardens at Gilson Park, and more. Children have been said to have nature deficit disorder, and what a perfect location for this educational asset right next to two schools where there are no roads and speeding cars and maintenance trucks driving by that they have to be worried about getting hit by. It's really a lovely setting. So thank you. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Rick Prohoff. I live at 2435 Pomona Lane. And I think, as you all know, because you've received some comments, I also represent Friends of the High Crest Grove, Inc., and speak on behalf of the people who helped originate that petition that you've been reading. Now, clearly, almost 500 names to that petition within Wilmette. I'll keep my comments to the 3 minutes. I think many have already suggested to you there would be a mistake to take down the trees. In a period of the month since we started this petition, most of us have been out of town on vacation, including some of the commissioners here in these periods during this time. It's the one period of time where people focus on family because programs end and school hasn't begun. So I'll stick my comments to 2 major themes. One, and the first and foremost, is the phrase, "we the people." We the people represents to every American the first words of the United States Constitution of the United States of America. It is a treasure as much as these trees. You have been our elected officials to represent and derive and discern what we the people would like and what we don't like. It's an unfortunate task that each of you try to determine what we should do, how we should do it, when most of us don't participate in the governance of our own community. What you do experience is what you hear is what we don't like, what we don't want. Unfortunately, that's what brings us out. I think it's clear that we've been brought out this evening and over the course of the last several months to help you discern that the people of Wilmette, at least many of the people of Wilmette, that have responded in a period of vacation time, say no to taking down these trees. They don't see a demand for more playing surfaces, and what's more, they don't agree with the policy for commercial development of what we still, and I don't mean to the residents, because there are not 500 people on the park. 500 people at least say, we want this to be a park. The second concept is the concept of home. What is our home? 50 years ago, man landed on the moon, and that's what we remember. But what we should really remember is not the viewpoint of our exploitation of the moon. What should be remembered is the Apollo Mission 8 that first came around the surface of the moon and saw for the first time humans saw an Earthrise. Our home, a blue marble in a void of infinite space without life. What we are here today to talk about is climate change and the threats, like the threats we perceive to our homes. We perceive a threat to our larger home, a home that we all share. This week, India planted, as a matter of government policy, I believe, 200 million trees. The village of Wilmette has a responsibility to abandon commercial development. I love the park. I have raised 3 children. I ran through the park yesterday with my grandson through those trees, and I am urging you on behalf of all whom have spoken here tonight and those that may come before you next week to not make the mistake of abandoning our home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Schwartz, and my wife and daughter and I live at 2446 Iroquois Road. We've been residents of Wilmette for almost 19 years. I'm proud to associate myself with everybody who's spoken tonight about the trees. It will be slightly duplicative, but I think that's a good thing. Cutting down the trees in the park will remove a source of food and shelter for insects, birds, and mammals that cannot be replicated with mature trees, shrubs, and artificial grass. Artificial turf without mature trees not only cannot absorb water in the way that the existing turf and trees do, but it will get warmer and stay warmer than natural turf and trees. And that will permanently change the microclimate in and around the park, and not for the better. We know that our climate is rapidly getting warmer. The last thing that our community should be doing is accelerating that process right here at home. There are also potential negative health impacts to children and others from exposure to recycled tire crumb rubber and artificial turf. These risks are currently being studied by the National Toxicology Program at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And before all the answers are in, it would be unwise to install another large artificial field in Wilmette. Wilmette has been designated a Tree City USA for the last 36 years. I remember when we moved here and we got a welcome packet in this building. I don't know if that's still provided to incoming residents, and I remember it mentioned Tree City USA, and of course we had driven around the village and noticed all the trees and bought our house in large measure because of one very large elm tree in our neighborhood. Sadly, the last really large one in our neighborhood because of loss to construction and disease and the terrible 2007 storm. And if that designation as Tree City USA means anything, if this logo of your commission means anything, and to you and to us as a community, I strongly urge you to reconsider the preferred option currently under consideration. Don't go out on a limb. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, back there.
Good evening. I'm Praj Shah, a Wilmette resident. I live on 2427 Pomona Lane. I love what Wilmette has to offer for its residents. I do think the Wilmette Park District does a good job of providing amenities for every age group. Increasing the number of amenities is admirable, but not by disregarding the ecosystem, by destroying the natural resources. Residents requires that the council seriously consider the alternative option, or all of us will be forced to live with the consequences of its action who enjoy nature. As per the original proposed plan for the 3 parks, there are more than 100 trees were to be removed. That is basically deforestation. If it was not for the residents who stood up against this action, we will be observing the destruction of the beautiful nature of those 2 parks as well. We should not take the gift of nature for granted. It will be extremely sad if every neighboring city disregards what nature has to offer and chop down trees without due regards. WilmetteStormwater.com, isn't it misleading that a commitment to green infrastructure is the first bullet point listed under the stormwater improvement? If the issue is about the soccer field, please note those games are seasonal. Are you willing to take away the nature that is enjoyed by every age group throughout the year instead of creating better management of the current field's resources? Kids play their games, bikers ride their bikes, People jog in the morning, and the elderly residents rest in the evening, chit-chatting with their friends for hours. When I look out from our window, I can't stop admiring the natural beauty. I could not imagine walking up to looking at the graveyard of destroyed trees. Let's save the trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
I'm Ellen Caicedo, and I live at 2629 Marion Lane. I'm Ellen Caicedo, and I live at 2629 Marion Lane. Believe me, I've never spoken in public, but this is really, it's really gotten to me. I don't have anything prepared, just a couple of points to make. Each individual sees conflict through their own lens. Trees can't speak for themselves. We are here to stand tall and speak for them right now. Just 2 weeks ago, last Friday, on Science Friday and on PR, there was a whole panel from the Morton Arboretum speaking about communities and trees and their necessity, which cannot be surprising to any of us. These trees have given us a place of shade, and they've cleaned our air for decades, all while our children have been playing. Wilmette Community Playfield has many soccer fields, that which my children grew up and played on. I can envision hot days, hot spring days, where the players, the coaches, the parents, grandparents run underneath those trees for shade, for protection. Again, trees can't speak for themselves. In the Jewish faith, there's a holiday called Tu B'Shvat, and we celebrate birth of trees. What about Arbor Day? This land is not ours. We are merely borrowing it. Now is the time not to cut down, but protect our trees for future generations, as the original inhabitants of this land tried to protect for us. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Ted Proha, 1509 Wilmette Avenue, 28 years in Wilmette. And I am here representing the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees. The trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, at the top of my lungs, oh, please, do not cut down another one. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Chuck Heath. I live at 2029 Highland Avenue. My wife and I have lived in Wilmette for, it's going to be 40 years this October. And one of the main reasons we moved to this community was its beauty. And really the trees is a central aspect of the beauty of Wilmette, in my estimation. And I think even back then it was a Tree City, USA. And that's something to be proud of, our beautiful, wonderful trees. And I had the feeling when I moved here, and I still have it, that we go out of our way to save mature, beautiful trees. And how we came to this spot where we are in a dilemma about possibly cutting down these beautiful cottonwoods for a big, huge concrete water storage facility. I just can't believe we've gotten to this point. It's obvious to me that whatever we do should be done to respect the trees, to keep the trees, and keep part of the beauty of Wilmette. I want to thank that lady for building that bench. I never knew who built it, but we too lost a child, and we have a we have a tree that's dedicated to our boy, and I've sat in that bench and looked out over the grove, and it's just a beautiful spot. So I hope we can figure a solution where we can get some flood storage and also save the cottonwoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone else that would like to address us? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Katie Fox. I live at 743 Leiden, and I'm also a teacher at Highcrest. And I've been quietly paying attention to this because I teach French. I don't teach science, but I am a teacher, and I have this feeling that this would be a hot topic at the beginning of the school year for the kids if they're seeing this happen, and if they begin their school year with this question, is this the right thing that we should be doing? It would be an interesting dialogue that we would be having that most of the teachers would not have in their wheelhouse to start the year with. And I think it's an interesting time in our lives that we have a lot of topics that we can and can't control, and it gives a little bit of empowerment to maybe the less heard. And I think that this opportunity could teach the children that what may seem like something that they don't have power over to discuss or argue, the fact that there are people in the community speaking up on behalf of the trees is a lesson in itself, and how it plays out is also the lesson that the kids are going to be watching very carefully at Highcrest. And I think that's just something really interesting. That's the angle I've been curious about as a teacher in the building. It really, you may not realize it, but it would really begin our school year with an interesting topic and an interesting curriculum supplement for sure. I mean, even in French class, we'd be talking about les arbres. So I'm just saying that that's something to consider. So thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Anyone else? No, we're not voting tonight, sorry. Anyone else? Anyone? Going once? Going twice? All right. No, we're not going to be doing that tonight, because we don't have all our commissioners here, so sorry. All right, if no one else would like to be heard, we're going to move along. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We appreciate your input. We will be moving along. Next on our agenda will be the approval of the voucher list.
All right, I move to approve the voucher list.
We'll wait a second.
In a moment.
Sorry.
It always happens.
I know.
Nobody wants to hear the voucher list.
Oh, sorry, Gordon.
I think you do such a nice job.
I had a question on that, actually.
The whole meeting.
I know,
and they're
exactly.
skipping it. I can't believe it.
You don't want to hear about it?
What's that?
Yeah, they're kind of finding out.
I think we'll move ahead. I move to approve the voucher list in the amount of $1,633,338.47, a copy of which is to be attached to and become a permanent part of the minutes of this meeting.
I second.
I second.
Oh.
Thank you. Are there any
Sorry.
questions or comments on the voucher list? I had one, actually. It was a charge for $2,250. It said Wilmette Park District Disc Assessment, D-I-S-C. I was just wondering what that was.
It's a psychological assessment that we have had some exposure to with some of our staff members, and we're now doing it with all of our staff members. It's in an effort for team building, but also better internal communication, better treatment of one another, so the internal customer service piece of it.
Okay. So not like
We'll be doing it
not
on-
mental health or anything?
No, we're not trying to cure anybody.
Sorry,
We're
I
just
didn't
trying to
know.
understand each other and ourselves a little
Okay.
better.
So better like teamwork building?
Correct.
Okay, excellent, thanks. Any other questions, comments?
Mine were taken care of earlier.
Okay, may we have a roll call vote then, please?
Commissioner Abbott? Yes. Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Voucher list is approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. Last Friday, August 9th, most of our camps came to an end. So the traditional summer camp season, the 8 weeks of summer camp came to an end. And now we are in the 2 weeks before the start of school where we offer extension camp and one-day activities and specialty camps, and all of that is going along well, but the summer camp season was quite strong and quite successful, and everyone had a great time, and for the most part, a very, very safe time as well. Also, in my memo, I do refer to the whole stormwater discussion, primarily the steps of tonight being a meeting at which we weren't going to be considering the memorandum of understanding due to all of the travel, as we're missing Commissioner Schisler, and once we surveyed the board, the only date that all 7 commissioners were in town is August 19th. So we have a special meeting scheduled for August 19th to consider the memorandum of understanding. The village's attorney has created a draft and sent it to our legal counsel, which is under review. I will be discussing that tomorrow with the legal counsel, and once we have a draft in a format to be shared with the board, we will pass that along. So we'll be meeting here again next week, the 19th, at 7:30 for a special board meeting at which the memorandum of understanding will be considered. Looking ahead, you do have a couple of agenda items on your agenda that will require motions and votes. The Parks and Recreation Committee heard a request from Canal Shores, and Commissioner Murdoch will explain that further and deliver the verdict from that committee as well. We have a closed session scheduled for this evening, and this is the standard 6-month review of the closed session minutes as required by the Open Meetings Act. So it's quite just a procedural requirement by the state statute. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Executive Director Wilson? Hearing none, we'll move along. Thank you very much. Committee reports. Lakefront Committee.
Oh.
Sorry, Brian. I didn't mean to catch you off guard.
All right. I woke up. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, we did have a meeting. I was a little late to it, but I got there. Not a lot in the meeting because Lakefront is winding down. The project, the Lakefront project, according to Jerry, is done. Trees are installed. Sailing gate's been installed. Landscaping. There was an email from a resident thanking the staff, and I want to mention this. On July 20th, a severe storm hit the lakefront area. There were an awful lot of boat rescues that took place in order to get the boaters back in. He wanted to commend staff, and I wanted to just mention it as well because the staff down there does a really terrific job keeping the lakefront safe for our users, and it can't be easy. We're still out for RFP, request for proposals. We have nothing new to report with regard to engineering services with the erosion and high water issue. Also, RFP for a land planner, that's still out, nothing new to report. Langdon Beach, nothing much to report, it's still shut down. The only thing is, and it wasn't at the meeting, but a few days ago we did, there was an article in the Tribune by Pulitzer Prize winning architectural critic for Blair Kamen, who wrote a glowing article about architects David Woodhouse and Andy Tanucci praising their work as sensitive architects of public facilities and prominently citing the new beach house as a shining example of their work. And I heartily agree with Mr. Kamen's assessment. I hope you all have seen it, and I just wanted to make a mention because I know this is going out on video, going out to the rest of the community. It was a nice, well-done architects in Wilmette kind of article. And that wraps up the Lakefront report.
Thank you. Any questions for Lakefront Committee? Thank you very much. We'll move along to Parks and Recreation Committee.
Parks and Rec met earlier this evening, and as Director Wilson had mentioned, we did have one matter before us. I'm going to skip over that and come back to it. We also discussed permanent bathrooms at the parks. There's been some discussion as a part of the stormwater management plan that we may want to consider having permanent bathroom facilities in one or more of these 3 parks, and so we've asked staff to start going through a systematic process to take a look at where we might want bathrooms, what criteria we would use to evaluate that. And the first step in that process was to sort of do a survey of where we have portable bathrooms currently. So we did that, and then over the course of the next couple of months, we'll be going through taking a look at how other park districts look at this issue, develop some criteria, and then apply them to the various parks. In terms of some of the areas, at the pool, we have 170 folks signed up for the Sizzling September, which is new this year, where we're going to keep the pool open longer. And apparently there have been a number of other inquiries, so we're hoping that more folks will take advantage of that as well. I remember when my kids were younger, they were always very disappointed the pool seemed to close so early when there were still those great days in late August and early September, so I'm glad to see we're doing that. Pirate Tennis Camp had 320 participants this year, which was more than a 10% increase over last year. Paddle tennis, the 4 original courts were resurfaced. It looks like we'll have 21 men's teams, 3 Sunday night men's teams, and 8 women's teams. So we're not quite the biggest in the world, but we're getting close. It's very exciting. We also discussed the fact that we have a total of 284 children who are now signed up for after-school programming. That's been a topic of conversation at Parks and Rec and here as well. It's a substantial increase over what we've been able to offer in the past, partially because we're going to employ some space, utilize some space at Centennial as well. So thank you to staff for being so creative with that and making sure that the wait list is completely cleared and all of our residents are able to be accommodated. So with that, I'd like to talk briefly about Canal Shores. It was in our packet, and I'll just sort of hold the drawing up here for anybody to see who didn't have a chance. There's Canal Shores has requested to do some native plantings, and as a part of their lease with us and our lease with the Water Reclamation District, they are supposed to make those requests to us, and we're supposed to forward them on to the Water Reclamation District. The committee didn't have any concerns about the proposal, and we actually suggested that we think that staff could probably handle these types of requests moving forward. But with that, I'd like to move to approve a recommendation to direct staff to forward the Canal Shores landscape request to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding this?
Now,
Again.
going forward, I mean, one of the things Mike said was that he wanted to let staff sort of make those decisions going in the future as well. Do we want to add that to the motion, or do we not need to?
I think historically they haven't come to the committee. I think because this was a newer request and we're asking Canal Shores to kind of follow the procedures in their lease, we're going to see more of these. So I don't know if we have to officially direct staff. I think what was indicated to us is that any time staff feels that there may be anything controversial or cover a larger area, their plan is probably to bring it back to us. So I think we'll trust their judgment with that.
What's in this area now? Is this grass?
I feel like it was something invasive, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it's a low-lying area that they're clearing out and putting in wetland sort of plants that are in line with their ecological plan that they created when they backed off the initial master plan. Brian, you might remember that conversation.
Well, I remember the initial master plan. I mean, this was some small part of that.
Right, and this is in line with that plan.
I think they're attempting to eventually do many
Bit by bit.
sections,
That's
bit by bit.
correct.
Yeah, as they
That's
have
my
as they have the
understanding as
funds
well.
to do it. Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Anything else from Parks and Recreation?
That's it.
Any questions for Parks and Recreation? All right, moving forward to Golf Operations Committee.
Yes, so the Golf Operations Committee met last week and reported on the results of July. July represents just 1/12 of the year, but 20% of the revenue, so it was consistent with past July is a very good month for the operation. Additionally, they continue to be over budget for the year, which also incorporates their commitment to increase the budget contribution. Another highlight is that programming has continued to expand to all ages. Bringing in a new program director has helped to allow new ideas, but also to allow the golf pro to focus on instruction. And there was a number of events and outings from the Wilmette Optimist to Loyola Hockey and others throughout the month. So operations are not only as expected, but above revenue commitments. And then going forward, there will be, we're moving into planning season as we get closer to budgeting and timelines for 2020. So those will be some of the next things on the horizon.
Thank you. Any questions for the Golf Committee? Thank you very much. We'll move along to Financial Planning and Policy Committee.
Okay, the Financial Planning and Policy Committee met on Monday, July 22nd. The main item on the agenda was the assumptions to use for the budgeting process, which is rapidly coming upon us, for salaries and wages and also for revenues. And as we've done in prior years, we made reference to Bureau of Labor Statistics information to kind of give us a starting point. We had a healthy discussion between staff and the committee, and staff is going to come back to us at our next meeting later this month with their proposal with a focus on sort of having a trade-off between salaries and wages and medical benefits. We made some changes in 2017, brought down our costs. 2018, we didn't do anything. Costs went up substantially that year. And again, most of it's usage related, not necessarily because we didn't make changes to the program. But if we are going to keep the medical program untouched, then that will have an effect on what we think is a proper salary and wage increase. If we're willing to do something to the medical program, then that gives us more latitude with the salaries and wages. So staff's going to come back and tell us what they think they want to do. So, and then we anxiously await the compensation study, which will then sort of tie into this as well. But that'll be sort of a longer-term thing we look at. It won't be immediate for the salaries and wages.
Any questions for financial planning? I have a question. I'm sorry. I was just gonna add, the compensation study, are we hoping then to implement that in the next year, or is it a longer rollout period?
Well, we haven't seen what they're recommending.
I was going to say, I think we need to get the final report from the consultants and have the discussion with the committee before we can really give any guidance on that.
Put any kind of plan or anything
Correct.
together. Okay, I was just curious what the timeline was for that whole process.
Yeah, I was curious, have you, and I apologize if you, do we have a date for when the compensation study is there, or do they
I'm
have
hoping
a
it's
date?
It'll be at the meeting on the,
meeting.
what is it?
2 weeks.
Finance committee?
Fourth Thursday.
So not the 19th, the week after?
Yeah.
26th.
Okay,
Mhm.
26th. No, the 19th.
Oh, it is the 19th. It's on the 19th.
Oh, so before, right, before.
Before this.
Oh, we're starting that meeting early.
That's right.
That's right,
Yes.
that's right. Okay,
Good
now I
memory.
remember, yeah, thank
If
you.
you would like to hear that report.
Meeting at 6 then? Because there was,
Yes.
okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for financial planning and policy? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is unfinished business. It states stormwater update. However, given that we don't have a full board and there's not a real reason to discuss it since we have a meeting next Monday, which will be all about stormwater, I would ask that any commissioner, if you have any questions or any information that you would like gathered that would help you make your decision, to please provide those questions or any kind of input to Steve so that he can get you that information, hopefully this week in a timely manner. Also give it to anybody else on the board, and that we'll get all that information, including the draft of the memorandum of understanding, before our meeting next Monday, when we will be discussing and voting on it with the entire board.
So the questions we all ask then that Steve answers will come back to all of us?
I would hope so, yes.
Any one question will get answered to everybody.
Yes, so that everybody has, again, I want everybody to have the same information at the same time, so everyone's making their best informed decisions.
Or Steve, I mean, I had asked you some other questions. Will that be?
That's all gonna be in there, yeah.
Just one big group, yes.
Correct.
Great. One group.
Yeah. I figure more information is better than none. Okay.
And will that be in the packet that the public gets as well, ahead of time? Okay, great.
Okay. Any other, so that's unfinished business. We'll move along to new business. Is there any new business before this board? Okay, we'll move along to closed session.
Yes, I move we adjourn to closed session for discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of minutes in accordance with Section 2C21 of the Open Meetings Act.
I second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Abbott? Yes. Commissioner Murdoch?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Goebel?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yes. Thank you. We are adjourned to closed session.